I have been using the Nemo Hornet Ultralight backpacking tent for well over a year now. I think this might be the best tent in its category when it comes to weight for the money. Let's talk about what I like about it, what I don't like about it, and who I'd recommend it to. Welcome back, everybody, and today we are going to talk about the Nemo Hornet 2P Ultralight backpacking tent. I've been using it for over a year, and it is time for the full review.
Hey, I need you to help me with something, okay? And I will give you this. I'll give you this if you help me.
Yeah.
Okay, what is this? Okay, I need you to say, click the link. Wait.
Click the link.
Hold on, I need you to say, like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe.
I need you to say, check out the merch.
Check out the merch.
And I need you to say, check out the podcast.
Check out the podcast.
Okay, one more thing. Here, look at me. I need you to say, click the bell.
Click the bell.
Okay, good job. Here you go.
If you've been watching this channel for like the last several years, you know we are stands for Nemo equipment. I have a ton of their products. I've got their sleeping pads, I've got their pillows, and now I've got their tent. I am just a huge fan of this company in general, and I couldn't be more excited to give you a full review of this tent. I got the Nemo Hornet exactly a year ago. I shot like a first look video, and since then, we've taken it to Colorado, we've taken it to Lake Tahoe, we've taken it to Nevada, Ohio, Michigan, and we've used it in a lot of different circumstances. We've also used it in the winter, we've used it in the rain, and now I think after this whole year, I'm really ready to dive into, what I like about this tent, what I don't like about this tent, and who I would recommend this tent to. Let's talk about the tech specs right now. I'll put them up on the screen. The main things you need to know about is this tent with all the bells and whistles comes in at under 2.5 pounds, like 2 pounds, 5 ounces, and it costs about $400. So it kind of puts it in that range where it's pretty reasonable and it compares against a lot of tents in this category, something like the MSR Hubba Hubba, some of the REI tents, the Big Agnes tents, the Copper Spur tents. That's kind of the niche that this tent is going for. But after this video, I think you'll see that all around, for the weight and the ease of use and the performance, I think this might be the best tent for the money. The tent has a lot of great features. It's got a nice double vestibule. They call it, semi-freestanding. I really think it's basically freestanding. You'll see right now, you do need 2 stakes on the foot end to kind of spread it out. But in a pinch, I think you could get this tent going without any stakes. So they do call it like semi-freestanding, but when I use it, and I've used it without stakes, I really don't think you need stakes. Now to get the vestibules as wide as possible, you are going to need some sort of anchoring points, but the actual tent itself really can be put up quite easily with just the poles. So what do I like about this tent? Because there is a lot. First and foremost, I think, like I've said, I think the price point for the weight and the fact that it's effectively freestanding, I think it puts this tent far above the other competitors. It is a little bit lighter than some of those tents I mentioned previously, and it's super easy to set up. And aside, Nemo is a great company. We'll get into that. But I think all around, it's the best tent for the money. Specific things I like about it. I like the fact that it's got two vestibules. It allows a lot of air to go through the tent. I like that it's super easy to set up, like super easy to set up. These tents are so much easier to set up than trekking pole supported tents. It's not even funny. I like how the Rainfly clips on. And I'll be honest with you, I used this tent for several nights out in Lake Tahoe without the Rainfly, and it was awesome.
I'm not doing the Rainfly. There's a 0% chance of rain every single night, so I want to see the stars, have a nice open canopy. Haven't slept in a tent this big in a long time.
I also really like how they've designed the interior of this tent. They've got a little pocket on the top of the tent where it's meant where you can slip your headlamp in, and the material is opaque in that it scatters and disperses the light, and it gives you like a legitimate like ceiling light when you're in there. And I use it all the time now. So when I get into the tent, I put the headlamp up there and I turn it on, and it's like, it's so much better than having like a headlamp dangling from a tent. It really disperses the light. The other stuff on the inside, it's got some pockets on the inside, but other than that, it's kind of bare bones, but I feel like with the space, I don't care about the pockets. So let's talk about the space. I have the 2-person version of this tent. It is the perfect space for 1 person. 2 people will be a little tight, but I think it's the perfect amount of space for 1 person. When I'm in there with an extra large sleeping pad, and I'm 6'2", I'm not small, so I need a large or extra large sleeping pad. If I have that pad all the way to one side, which honestly I rarely do because I have enough space, but if I were to put it all the way to one side, I'd have about almost 2 feet of room, for activities. It can be seen as a con, and we'll talk about it because it's not huge for a 2-person tent, but my feeling with tents, and I've talked about this a lot on this channel, is that it's 1-person tents are like 0-person tents. 2-person tents are really like 1-person tents. And this is the perfect size because you don't want something too big because then you're going to be carrying excess weight. But the whole point in getting a 2-person tent is so you're not crammed in a coffin like most 1-person tents are. And I think this is like the perfect size for 1 person as a tent that's marketed for 2 people. So if I were to boil down the reasons I like it, it's the weight to cost ratio. It's the ease of use and setting up. It's the fact that Nemo is a great company that stands by their products. I love the interior design aspect of it, and I love how easy it is to set up. So what don't I like about it? So something I stated earlier, this is marketed as a 2-person tent, and like, no, you would not fit 2 people comfortably in this thing. If you're looking for a Nemo tent for 2 people, get a 3-person tent. This tent, I don't even think I could fit 2 large pads in it, to be quite honest with you. Another thing I don't love about it is it does have a head and a foot end. This is a little thing. So the tent is tapered. So obviously the head end is a little bit wider than the foot end. It's nice in tents like my Z-Packs tents that are perfectly symmetrical, so I can throw my stuff in there and I don't have to worry about, okay, did I get the head end right? Did I get the foot end right? I like that about the Z-Packs and other tents like that. So this takes a little bit more effort when you're setting up because you do have a dedicated foot and head end. So when you're camping and you want your head to be somewhere in relation to something in the camp or whatever, or you want your head, a lot of times when you're camping on ground, it's not flat, you're going to want your head elevated. It's going to take slightly more effort because you're going to have to take into consideration when you pitch it and set up, hey, this is the head end and this is the foot end. Another thing I'm not crazy about, but it just comes with the territory, this tent I would consider ultralight because it's about 2 pounds, and we'll get into that in a second. It's about 2 pounds, even though it uses poles. I baby it, okay? Most people who use this tent that I know use a ground cloth. I don't use ground cloths. I figure if I scrape the tent, I'll just patch it or something. I have a ground cloth, like a piece of Tyvek. Most people will use a ground cloth with this tent. Now, one thing that Nemo does do, which I think is really cool, is they make the floor of the tent out of a little bit tougher nylon than the sides of the tent. So they do give you a little bit more durability there, but because it is an ultralight tent, you're going to have to baby it. Like I said, most people I know that use this tent use a ground sheet, and they recommend using a ground sheet. I don't. I put about 15 nights on this thing with no issues. Now, granted, I haven't used it on rocks or anything, and I might use a ground sheet if I use it on rocks, but durability might be a concern. One thing that is a little bit, something I had to just tweak a little bit with this tent. So here you go. Here's the tent. Here's what it comes in. So this tent comes in, like I said, I think it's marketed about 2 pounds, 5 ounces. Now, this thing comes with this stuff sack, which has cordage on it. The stakes are in a stuff sack, and they're not super light stakes, and the poles come in a stuff sacks, which is normal for a tent. You're going to get a lot of different things. They're going to come in a lot of different stuff sacks. That adds a lot to the weight. So I have it in this for storage, but there's a few things I do that I think are a really good idea, and they aggregately shave about 3 to 4 ounces off the weight of the tent. So first, I unless it's an overnight, I do not use this stuff sack. I have a Dyneema like roll top bag that I put the tent in. That saves about 1 to 2 ounces right there. Second, I don't use the stakes that it came with, obviously. I have, they're not super light. They're not titanium, but I have tiny groundhog MSR stakes that I use. That shaves off about another ounce. And then a lot of the time I don't use the stuff sack that the tent poles come in. So if you do those 3 things, you will shave almost 4 ounces off the weight of this tent. And that brings it down to like 2 pounds, 1 ounce, 2 pounds, 2 ounces, which I'm just going to round down to 2 ounces. So it's kind of a negative in that it comes with all these extras that add a lot to the weight, but with a little bit of energy and effort and, hacking, you can take the weight of this thing from, 2 pounds, 5 ounces to 2 pounds, 1 ounce. And I think everyone should consider doing that. Like, I just have one of these laying around, and I obviously have my stakes that I use normally, so I just used it, but kind of a negative in that there's a lot of extras that add to the weight. However, the stuff sack is awesome. It's really cool. Like, these things are useful, and it's got like a map of the constellations on the inside. I think it's really cool. That glows in the dark. So it's very cool, but unnecessary weight in my opinion. Those are my only cons to it. I don't love that it's tapered, and I don't love a lot of the extras, but those are easy things to get around. Now, who would I recommend this tent to? So the reason I got this tent was we were going backpacking in a few places out west on those granite rocks where you just can't use stakes, obviously, and using a non-freestanding tent is a pain in those areas. It can be done. I've done it. You got to use rocks. You got to get a bit creative. But I got this tent because for effectively 2 pounds, now it is 2 pounds and change depending on your loadout, but for 2 pounds-ish, you can get a 2-person tent that I think is freestanding that doesn't cost $800. And I think that's all you need to know about this tent is it checks all those little boxes. So if you were someone looking for a freestanding tent that's easy to set up, that I would consider ultralight from a good company, I think this beats out every tent in that market. So you're beating out things like MSR, like Big Agnes, and I think it fills a niche for most people. Obviously, if you're someone who is an ultralight purist and is always going to want to use trekking pole supported tents, this is not going to be the tent for you. That's obvious. But I think that's the minority of people. And I do think, because like I have a 15-ounce tent, and there are times where even though I don't need a freestanding tent, I'm going to take this tent over my Z-Packs tent because I want more room. I don't want to have to deal with like wind and stuff knocking my tent over, and I'm willing to sacrifice a pound for that. I mean, that's the difference here. The lightest of tents you can get, that's a 1-person tent that uses trekking poles, it's going to be a pound. So you're talking to a guy who carries a 1-pound camping chair. So I'm willing to sacrifice 1 pound to get all of this, and it's totally worth it. That is it. That is my full review of the Nemo Hornet Ultralight 2-person backpacking tent. I've loved it. I've used it a ton. I couldn't recommend it enough. In fact, they make a more ultralight version now if you want to spend some more money. Nemo products in general, made in the US, warranted. I have a ton of their products. I've never had any issues. Check it out. We'll see you later.